Okay, Acadia, I am going to read for you the end of this book. We saw it yesterday. You read. I read the first part of it to you yesterday. Let me just set my camera up here. It is called The Winter Mittens. I'm sure you remember it if you were listening to this video pretty soon after I recorded it. Yesterday I read to you the first part. It was very good to see you again, by the way. I haven't seen you in person very much recently, but we're going to have a lot of fun together later this month and in August. We're going to spend a lot of time together. I'm looking forward to that. Anyway, this is The Winter Mittens. You will remember that it featured a little girl named Addie, who I think was a lot like you. She was a little bit small for her age, but she was very vigorous. She was very courageous. She'd just go out and do things. She'd climb hills. She'd go places. She's very athletic, just like you are, not afraid of too much. So, but the story is that she was walking to school. She found this silver box. It had some old mittens in it. She knew the silver box was too nice for her to take because it belonged to somebody, but she thought, no, nobody's going to miss those old raggedy mittens inside, and I need some mittens because it's cold, so I'll just take the mittens. She actually knew that what she was doing was wrong, but she was trying to tell herself that it was okay. And so then she discovered that when she puts the mittens on, it snows, and when she takes them off, it doesn't snow. And then one time she said, I'll leave them on for a long time. We'll have a whole lot of snow on Christmas. And then she couldn't take the mittens off. It's terrible. She couldn't take the mittens off. What's she going to do? It's snowing, it's snowing. Cars are sliding off the streets. So here we go. We're picking up again. She says, oh no, what am I going to do now? The wind howled. I'm reading right here in case, I don't know, you probably can't see the words. Anyway, you can tell by the expression on her face that she's worried. Oh no, she gasped. What am I going to do now? The wind howled so loudly that it might have been in Addie's own room. She heard a cracking sound as limbs were torn loose from trees somewhere out in the storm. There was a loud explosion and a flash of blue light in front of the house. Addie's room went dark. I bet there were some cars that were getting dented by hail also. It's terrible. Now the power is out. I have to do something, she thought. The box. If I can find the silver box, maybe I can put the mittens in it. Addie felt her way downstairs. That's because it was dark. The power was out. She could hear her parents in the kitchen calling to her and getting out candles and matches. That's so they could see. They'd light the candles so they can see. Whew, boy, look at that. These are snowdrifts all the way up to the window. See what she's done? They did not hear her put on her coat, scarf, hat, and boots and slip out the front door into the blizzard. The sound of the wind outside was deafening. The snow stung Addie's cheeks and forehead. Her eyes watered when she looked up. So she just put her head down, leaned over against the wind, and shuffled ahead. Because she's vigorous. She's not going to be afraid. Even though she could see nothing, not even the familiar cracks in the sidewalk, Addie could sense where she was. She crept along, crossing streets and following the route she knew so well. Her feet and hands grew numb, but the rest of her body was soon warm from the effort of fighting through the wind and snow. Addie reached the downtown at last and felt her way along the storefronts until she came to the space between the two buildings where she had found the box. The wind-blown snow was nearly waist deep there. Addie had to use her arms and legs to clear a path to the back corner where she had left the silver box. She dug and dug in the snow until she reached the frozen leaves and the litter beneath. Then she pulled and scraped away the leaves, and her hands hit cold, hard concrete. The silver box was not there. Addie's eyes filled with tears. It must be here somewhere, she sobbed. She struggled back to the storefront. A strong gust of wind caught her and knocked her down. Boom! Snow went into her eyes and mouth. She got to her feet and ran wildly into the storm, no longer sure of her direction. Sometimes she bumped into a building or a trash can, but mostly she just put her head down and ran. I should have left that box alone, she cried. I should have left it. Now I'm lost and these horrible mittens will never come off. Oh, help! Addie straightened up to see if she could tell where she was. As she did, the wind gusted and roared, swirling around and around her. Suddenly, the wind caught at the loose bits of yarn on the winter mittens, and they began to unravel. They're mittens. They're woven out of string, and they're unraveling now. The wind is causing the loose threads to unravel. The yarn was pulled up into the dark sky as the mittens furiously unwound themselves from Addie's hands. Look, it's like magic. See over here in the picture? I don't know if you can see this. But you see these are little strings, little strands. The wind itself is pulling the mittens off of her hand by unraveling the yarn. Wow, she watched opened mouth as the snake-like ends of the yarn disappeared up into the storm. Look, she's so surprised. And it's disappearing up into the storm. At that moment, the wind let up. The snow slowed. Within a few minutes, the storm was over. Addie looked around. Here and there were abandoned cars, half buried. There were huge drifts that looked gigantic, like gigantic waves, frozen as they crested. The power was still out, and most houses were dark, but for the faint light of candles. See the picture there? Looks like she's going to get back home with her mom and dad. We'll see. I have to read that part. Addie's blind run had taken her in the direction of her house. She saw now that she was not far from it. When she came within a block of her own home, she could hear her father's voice calling. She ran through the snow. She ran until she felt her parents' arms around her. They took Addie into the house where candles were lighting the darkened rooms. A fire was burning in their small fireplace. The three of them sat together in front of it, wrapped in blankets. Three of them, what happened to, Addie doesn't have a little sister. That was the different story we were reading about Princess Pistachio. So Addie is just there with her parents, no little sister. Not yet, maybe she'll have one. She told them what happened as best she could, and they held her and said everything would be all right. After a while, Addie breathed a deep breath. A warm and good and whole feeling came over her. Look at that. That's a great picture, isn't it? The parents sitting with the little girl in front of the fire. The silver box and the storm and the winter mittens seemed small and long ago, almost like a dream. It was, after all, Christmas Eve. The end. Okay. I like that. You know, this book was written quite a while ago. When you see books, if you look in the first part of the book, it will tell you when it was written. And if they still have books that were written a long time ago in the library, it means people really liked them and they've been read a long time. This book was written, it says copyright 1988. So that was 1988 was 45 years ago. So this was written, your mom wasn't even, let me see, was your mom born by then? Yeah, your mom was born by then. Anyway, it was written 35 years ago, quite a while, 35 years ago. Anyway, I enjoyed reading it to you, and I am looking forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. Bye-bye.